Oh, we are flying today. Welcome to episode 7 of the Delivery Manager Daily. I'm Mario Di Cristofano, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about, as a delivery manager, the shadows that you cast on your teams and your clients, some of the things that I've learned, the mistakes that I've made. And we'll spend 15 minutes talking through some of those learnings, and hopefully you'll be able to take away some interesting things to think about, some tactics to deploy, and just to help make you a better delivery manager. If this is your first time to the podcast, welcome. We're available on all the major podcast delivery networks and platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and we're also available on YouTube. And do follow the Twitter feed at DM_daily using the hashtag Delivery Manager Daily if you want to ask questions or get involved with the podcast too. So thanks for listening, and let's get started. So yeah, the shadows that you cast and what that actually means. So I am a big bloke. I'm about talking about the physical shadows first, right? So I'm a big bloke. I'm 6 foot, 6'1", and I'm pretty heavy set. And I'm an effective communicator, both verbally, I think, but also with my body language. And a lot of us are a little bit better at body language than we maybe think, because a lot of it is entirely natural. The way that we convey happiness, displeasure, temper, all done through the way that we move, our eyes, our facial expressions, our micro gestures. Now, it's very easy to not be mindful as a leader, as a delivery manager, as someone looking after and responsible for teams and team success. It's very easy to forget the impact that you can have on others. Now, the impact that you can have is the physical impact of making people feel uncomfortable, or people feeling that you're aggressive, or maybe confrontational, and putting people under pressure, both cognitively and physically. And sometimes, depending on the size of the prize and the size of the project, the stakes are high, and as human beings, we're human beings. But one of the main mistakes that I used to make for a very long time was I've been quite good at being multifaceted in terms of my skills. I can tackle most workflows and know enough about most things to be reasonably sensible in them. So, I'm not a user experience expert, but I know enough about user experience to know what's right and wrong. I'm not a developer, but I know a smattering of computer languages and know fundamentally the importance of good DevOps. I'm not a DevOps engineer, but I understand DevOps to a level where I understand DevOps, etc. And I've been able to do that and have those skills for a while, and being completely blind to expecting people to have like an interest outside of their domain knowledge across everything else, and me getting frustrated with them because a developer didn't really care about testing, or a tester didn't really care about project management, or a project manager didn't really care about developing, and really showing that I was frustrated and letting that pollinate within a team. And I had some really difficult times at the earlier parts of my career, and have not always won hearts and minds, both with the client. In fact, I think at the start of my career, one of my bosses said my people skills suck. And that's actually lived with me to this day. And I'd like to think that that's not the case now, but that was definitely a cold, hard truth when I heard it at the time. Thought I knew it all and actually didn't. But I've built up over time this kind of empathy, this practical empathy for people, understanding that not everyone is the same. So all the standard cliches, right, that you're aware of, there are many ways to success. It doesn't always have to be done your way, as long as it's getting done, etc., etc., etc. And I knew that in my head. I didn't particularly practice it either, but more over the last 10 years or so, and actually realizing that if you want to be a leader, excuse me, while I choke, a quick drink. Sorry about that. I should get some merch, shouldn't I, and be able to sell it midway through the podcast. So over the last kind of 5-10 years, really recognizing that if you want to be a leader, you need to embrace people, and you need to create, as little friction as possible, and be able to work with people and give them what they need to deliver as a team. And often people want to be heard, they want to be listened to, they want to know why they're doing what they're doing. They want to know and have confidence that you, as a delivery manager, as someone responsible for them, that they'll be protected from the client's bullshit or the political bullshit of the company that you work for, that you will put your mortgage on the line for them. Now that sounds really quite bold, but but I've got colleagues that hopefully are listening to this podcast in other parts of the world that have seen me do it as I've grown my career and grown the minerals, to actually put my mortgage, metaphorical and actual mortgage, on the line time and time again for my team, being authentic and doing the right thing rather than either the party line or something that's so abhorrently wrong. You're just pushing your team under a bus and going, well, it's not my problem. As a delivery manager, you've got to get comfortable with the buck stops with you. And I get frustrated with, often I find myself trying to fill in the gaps of where people aren't able to do things. And there'd be so many times where I'd get frustrated with that and let those frustrations show with my team. And all that does is it alienates me from my team and what they're doing and what they think of me. And it's that adage of, to get people to do the right thing, they have to want to do it, know why they're doing it, and want to back you. And a bit like, being in an army, if you're the sergeant major, they need to, if you want loyalty, you have to both show it and be that exemplar of doing the right thing. So what I've done over the last kind of few years is really worked on making sure that teams are clear and have competency demonstrated to them with the things that I do. Some of the things that I talk about in this podcast have come from years and years of practical experience of what works, what doesn't, making mistakes. Being able to be transparent and vulnerable and put yourself on the line. And, I have no issue talking with the team and saying, well, I'm not an expert in this particular field, or I also have no issue calling someone out on what I think is something wrong, but done in a way that doesn't make someone feel like shit. And I think one of the biggest skills that I've learned as a delivery manager, and if not, you should too, is actually learning to delegate. There are many projects that I work on where it looks like I don't do a lot, and yet everyone attributes, the success to some of the things that I've done. And I'd have never said this years ago, so there's an example of learning, but I've learned that to be successful on the project, you're better off having a team around you doing the work, being happy to do it, and you there to take the punches and protect them. Everyone gets what they want. You do your job as a leader, they get to do what they need to do as a team. And between you all, you get to move towards a point of success. It's really hard when you're passionate about wanting to do the right thing, and you're, my particular character is I enjoy working hard and, doing those extra hours. I'm fortunate and privileged to do a job that I love doing, and it's my hobby as well as my career. So expecting everyone to be the same, is something that I stopped doing a while ago, and not expecting everyone, to some people it's a job, to some people their role is a job, whether they're a tester or a QA or a BA, they have other things, and that's okay. And learning about people and what they want and what their needs are, and being able to be transparent and, again, vulnerable, right, as a leader, being honest, which I want to talk about next. So being honest as a leader, what does that mean? So one of the things I do mobilizing projects and getting teams is making sure that they're clear of the scope. And that scope is the scope that is the actual scope, rather than the one that's been woollied up in the scope of work. So we've all been in the position where the sales team have sold something and it's in no way in alignment to what the delivery team have got to deliver. And you end up already behind, your 2 sprints off, and you've only started yesterday, and already everything's on fire. Now, I've learned to eliminate that particular scenario by being absolutely transparent and upfront. In fact, I won't let the teams mobilize without that synergy between a scope of work that the client's agreed to and a practical set of backlog tasks and a scope of work that is clear and that makes sense for the team. It has to be practical, tangible things that people understand, that if I think I said in another episode, as a team, you have to be able to describe what you're doing in a couple of sentences that your mum would understand. If you don't, or you can't, and you're a little bit too nervous to speak up and say, I'm sorry, I don't get this, then there's something wrong. And your job as a delivery manager is to make sure everyone understands what they're doing and it's clear, and hopefully they see the value and can get behind it. But you also need to have that pragmatism to acknowledge people that maybe think, oh, this is just a job to me, or I don't particularly agree with this way of doing it. And getting everyone onto that same page using I guess a human, using human interaction and being a human being rather than this dogmatic dictatorial, you will do this because that's your job. That has rarely gotten success. Well, certainly not for me. And the more senior that I get, I realise that, the softer approach, even though it's not my natural, my natural character. Those that know me know I'm not particularly soft, and I am quite confident would be the nicest word. But the ability to kind of temper that and tone it down at the right point and understand that, there are other people on the team, that's really helped me shine, I think, as a delivery manager, and something that I've not always been able to do. So as a delivery manager, think about the shadows that you cast on people. Think about when you're pissed off. Do you show that to your team? Is it appropriate to show it to your team? Do you recognize that actually, going to work and being a leader involves being consistent? And also it's a little bit of being on show, almost on stage. And actually, your teams need to see that steady water approach. They need to see that you're a steady, a steady constant on the project. And if you're coming in pissed off and angry and woe is me and the project's on fire and everything's shit and it's not my problem as a DM, it's the people above me, then I think you're doing the team a disservice and not doing your job as a DM. Your part of your job is to, whether it's fair or not, take responsibility for those things. And even if it's not right, take responsibility in front of the team to make sure that they're clear, that they're going to be protected. And what you'll generally find is that loyalty and desire to want to help you will pay off. The downside is you've got to have the minerals, I guess, as a delivery manager, because you've got to put yourself in harm's way, but that's why you're a delivery manager. I'd love to hear what other DMs do when it comes to thinking about how their behavior shapes their team. A scenario that I always talk about, I used to use this power, almost a superpower, in the past, probably wrong. I can, because of my physical presence and size and shape and the way that I communicate, maybe the way I sound, we've all seen it. A strong person can come into the room and change the tone of a room. And there's two ways that they can change that tone. They can either change the tone to be relaxed and open and honest and transparent, or they can make the room clam up and the air ionizes and it all gets a bit tense and people become a little bit apprehensive. Now, that situation, that negative element is something that I used to weaponize and use if I was having a Mardy, or I lost my temper about something, or I was just pissed off with the team, or even if I was pissed off with something that happened outside the project, maybe I'd take it out on the team. Now that's real kind of dick behavior and something that, as a project manager, delivery manager, you hopefully learn very quickly to not do. But then it got me thinking about, well, if I've got the power to do that, if I've got the power to go into a coffee shop and make the barista fluster so they break, they drop the drink or spill the coffee, and then that gives me something to moan about. If I've got that power, why don't I use it to try and do the opposite, to make people feel comfortable and to make people feel that they can say anything they want to say and they'll be safe, and to make people feel that they can approach me and talk. And that is so powerful and empowering, not only for the team, but for me. And I do really thoroughly recommend that as you, as a delivery manager, become, if you're not already aware, and maybe you should think about, look yourself in the mirror and think, what impact do I have on people? What would the people say to me versus what they'd say behind my back? Do I lose my temper? Do I get pissed off? Do I show that? When was the last time I protected my team? When was the last time I, maybe pushed someone under the bus? Do yourself a self-audit, self-assessment almost, and think about the impact that you have. You'll find often that there are loads of little micro things that you do over the course of a day or a week with your team that you're maybe not aware of. And if you look back and think, oh, maybe I could have handled that better, or maybe I was a little bit insensitive there. And what I tend to do to keep myself honest is kind of once a week is just look back over the conversations I've had, and if I've made a mistake or I've fucked up, correct it. Mistakes are okay. I'm not particularly scared myself of making mistakes. I think it's about how quickly you can recognize that they're mistakes and then work to fix them, and hopefully not make a similar mistake in a similar situation again. Now, I'm okay with that, and has done me pretty well. I think part of the problem in business now is we're all scared of kind of messing up. So we'd rather do nothing at all and be impotent. But as a delivery manager, have a think about kind of the shadows that you cast. Read the blog on my blog, The Shadows You Cast. And if you've got ideas or comments or questions, you can comment on Twitter using the hashtag Delivery Manager Daily if you want to get involved, and we'll pick those up on the next live episode. So the shadows you cast as a delivery manager, have a think about the impact you have on people. But for now, have a great afternoon. Good talking to you.